Hey guys, it's Ryan here with Hobbies of Man once again, and today we're doing another episode of the Sword and Sorcery Book Club. Today we are looking at Scourge the Serpent, issue 2. In the previous issue, we had basically a pretty normal kind of story. Like, it was Jim Zub and Ivan Gill retreading the original Howard stories and trying to find a way to coalesce them into a single narrative across time and space, right? And although I did like it, I do think that having that be the main crux of this arc, right? That idea of rethreading these stories and try to weave them together maybe is not, or maybe was not the best kind of opportunity or kind of the best way to use these stories, right? Because I'm a newer fan. I started reading through the actual Howard stories at the same time I started reading through Jim Zub's run, and so a lot of these stories I've interacted with, and particularly in preparation for this through the Road to Scourge the Serpent reading challenge, I have experienced these stories relatively, recently, and so retreading feels almost like an unnecessary thing, a superfluous kind of thing, right? And I thought that was my main criticism of the previous issue. It's still kind of my main criticism so far. I mean, in a series that only has 4 issues, the first 2 issues are half the story. And so far, I do think that we're mostly stuck in that kind of retreading kind of concept. And so I do think that's still my main issue here, my main problem with this arc, with this storyline. But in this issue, I was a lot more excited about what's going on. I think that maybe is because the first issue aligned my expectations. It kind of tempered them a little bit. I wasn't expecting something new like we got in the Battle of the Blackstone. I was expecting something a little bit simpler than the previous time that we had in a crossover, right? And so within those expectations, this really surpassed what I thought I was going to get out of it. I really, really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it. I think Ivan Gill really knocks it out of the park. I think his artwork is phenomenal. There's really very minimal issues here. I would say that it's all pretty consistent. I like all of it. I like the color choices as well. Let me see who does the coloring here because I don't remember. I think it's João Canolo, but I'm not really sure. Let's see if it tells us here. Yeah, it's João Canola. And he does a great job with the colors as well. I quite like his work. And Jim does a really good job at threading these stories and skipping from one story to the next in a way that feels pretty satisfying in terms of trying to turn it into a single narrative, right? So the book actually opens up with Gonar, I think is his name, or Gunnar, the old Pictish shaman that we met in the previous arc, in the previous issue, who says that time and space do not exist. All things that ever were, are, or ever will be, all happen at the same time, right? Or transpire now. And so we see 3 different stories that are technically happening at the same time. We see Conan in Callian Publico's museum being surrounded by the Numalian guards. We see the leader of these guards is very kind of angry, like police brutality kind of cop. And the guy that is in charge of him is a much more, grounded, less likely to kind of go crazy kind of guy. And he's trying to keep the peace and try to actually figure out what's going on. He knows that Conan really didn't do it, but the evidence is kind of pitted against Conan, right? Then, as Conan is getting ready to fight these guys and he's exchanging words with them, we turn back to the Thurian Age, where we see the Snake Man on the floor. We see Cole angry at it and realizing that, they are these horrid creatures that go bump in the night that are now assailing him. He and Prowl have a conversation. They get rid of the Snake Man, and then Prowl mentions that this is one of the vestiges left of the ancient enemies that humanity faced, right? Eons ago, when ancient men fought grisly beings from the Elder Universe, and we see this awesome, full spread of humans fighting all sorts of monsters, and it really looks really, really cool. If you guys have ever seen Devilman Crybaby or read through the Devilman series, the original one, there are scenes explaining where devils come from in that story that remind me of this, that look just like this. And this is awesome. You know, we see some harpies, we see some snake men, we see werewolves, we see these kind of like a dog-headed lizard people. Well, they look like lizards, but their faces kind of look like dog heads. And we see all sorts of crazy shit as a small contingent of humans, they're all very barbarian in nature, are fighting them off, right? And we see, you know, people that are black looking, we see people that look like Sumerians, we see people that look like the Vanir and the Aesir, and it's just really, really awesome. Of course, we see people that are like Pictish in nature as well. And then this brings Cole to a realization, right? These ancient stories that he had heard throughout his life are all true, even though people talk about them in hushed whispers, else they'd be called blasphemers or heathens. They are true, right? And these are things from far back in the past. And this is a great reiteration of this idea that Howard had, right? That humanity comes and goes in waves. And I liked it a lot. I thought it was pretty enjoyable. I did like it. And then we come back to Conan, and we see that they're looking at the bowl, right? The sarcophagus, and they're trying to figure out what it is. And they realize that it has the symbol of the god of Set, right? Or the god Set, the sign of the old serpent, right? And then this is when we transition over to the modern story, the 1934 story, where we see Kirawan interacting with Evelyn Gordon and seeing like an image transpose itself between himself and her. This image of this, you know, Egyptian-looking woman, kind of like a Cleopatra type character, who has a darkness in her eyes, right? And when he's asked if he thinks that he's in danger, Kirawan responds that maybe all of them are in danger, right? And Gordon, James Gordon, is wondering, right? Is my wife going crazy? What's going on? And, well, they don't really get an answer, but Evelyn mentions that she hears or knows or realizes that there's a darker version of her that is coming out, an evil thing that is coming out of her, and she doesn't know how to control it, right? We transition back to the Thurian Age, where we see Prowl suddenly attack Cole, although it turns out that this is not Prowl, this is actually a snake man that was taking his form. And Cole manages to kill him, and in his coming down from the battle, he starts to think that Prowl was a betrayer, right? Prowl comes back and tells him, no, I wear the sigil of the dragon on my arm, and we can speak the magic words, right? Ka Namala, Kajarama, or something like that. And as this happens in the Hyborian Age, we see Conan suddenly catch the little aristocratic noble guy that told him to come steal this stuff, right? When Conan tries to use him as a way to get out of this annoying situation, the guy turns on him. He tells him that he's never seen him in his life, and Conan goes berserk. He kills the man, and he fights all of the guards around him. And as he's about to land the killing blow, the words Ka Namakala Jarama echo across time and space. They affect Evelyn Gordon and Kirawan quite drastically. She kind of goes crazy, pulls out a gun and starts shooting, which is different from the actual original story, but it's close enough that it doesn't make too much of a difference. And Conan hears those words, and then this is what makes him go off to try to find the god in the bowl, right? Before the big reveal that it's this snake serpent creature, right? And this is where the story ends. And so it seems like we probably only have one more issue of the retelling stuff, and then we'll move on to a proper final battle, confrontation across time and space, which is pretty awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I really enjoyed this issue a lot more. I mean, I think it's mostly due to my expectations, more so than it is about like the quality of the story being better in this issue than before. I would rate this a 9 out of 10. I think it was quite good. It was really enjoyable. Within the context of what the story is supposed to be, it works really, really nicely. It does a great job at, you know, bringing all of the elements together, and it does a good job at showing you how all of the things happen at the same time, right? They happen at different times, but they happen at the same time. And this is how we get to see our Howardian heroes kind of interacting with each other in a different way than we saw before, right? I'm not really sure why they decided to keep them separate this time. I do wonder if we're going to get to see Costigan come in. He was in the Scourge of the Serpent tie-in Savage Sword, so I do hope he does. It'd be nice to see Aeya and, what's his name? The male character from Spear and Fang also interact in some way. And of course, I want to see Patrick Searcher's Solomon Kane character from the Serpent Ring story tie in together. I assume that that's going to be in the next issue or maybe in the last issue. I'm not really sure, but I do feel like there should be a little bit more work done to incorporate them, and I do hope to see that next time, right? So, yeah, in terms of the extras, we got a small cover gallery. All the covers are pretty good this time, but I do think the best one is probably the main cover. Although cover D by Ian Churchill looks pretty cool as well. And Eric Donovan's cover, I think it looks really awesome in my opinion. It looks kind of like a Power Rangers kind of aesthetic to it. But I do feel like that's probably going to be the least popular out of these. Maria Wolf's is interesting. That's cover C, but I didn't quite like it. And beyond that, we have, of course, Jeff Shank's essay. This one is called Shadows of the Serpent, Howard, Cult, and the Birth of Sword and Sorcery. This explains the Shadow Kingdom, how it came to be, how it published in Weird Tales in 1929, and how this is really where Sword and Sorcery was born, right? It's a story that takes on the kind of medieval fantasy aesthetic. It strips it down to the bare essentials. It adds in story elements from different types of storytelling that he likes, a lot of historical elements, some supernatural elements, and theosophy, and one other thing, metaphysics, I think, metaphysics, as well as incorporating ideas from Atlantis, Mu, Thule, and all of these other ancient civilization, mythology type things that we all know today, right? And he also mentions another collaborator of his, Patrice Launay, who mentions that Howard probably based Cole on King Saul, a biblical figure who is a pitiful and heroic figure. And since I don't have enough understanding of biblical literature, I can't say if that's true or not. But there is some interesting elements here that are mentioned later that talk about the fact that the Serpent Men kind of define the hidden corruption and treachery that kind of is abundant in civilizations, if you want to tie it back to Howard's kind of idea that the more civilized you are, the less likely you are to be honest, you know, and the kind of, what story was it in? I guess it might have been the Shadow Kingdom itself, or maybe a different story. I think it was a Conan story. I can't remember which one, where we have that kind of understanding that Conan, and by extension Howard, dislike civilization a bit, right? And the Serpent Men embody that kind of idea, whereas Prowl, a savage barbarian character, represents the opposite, loyalty, frankness, and courage. And I quite like this. And of course, it ends with telling us that the Shadow Kingdom is still a valuable story, right? And I agree, the Shadow Kingdom is a pretty valuable story. It's the first Cole story, and it's really one of the better ones, I think. I mean, I like the Mirrors of Thus and Thun, but the part that I particularly like, apparently, is not actually Howard's work. So, maybe I wouldn't like it as much if I didn't read it that way. But yeah, those are my thoughts here on this this issue. Overall, it was good. It was better than last time because my expectations coming in were different. They're adjusted now, and within those expectations, this knocks it out of the park. I think it's quite good. If you're a massive Howard superfan, you might not necessarily feel the need to get this either. But I do recommend you get it anyways because Ivan Gill's artwork really shines, and it's really, really phenomenal, and it's great. And I really like how he represents all of these stories that are so classic, right? So, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and see you guys next time.